Welcome to a profound journey of reflection and realization where we bridge the gap between youthful ambition and the ultimate wisdom of age. At 30, life feels like an endless horizon, yet looking through the eyes of someone who has lived nearly a century, we discover that the things we chase today might not be what truly matters in the end. This five-part series, inspired by the 98-year-old Evelyn's perspective, is designed to challenge your priorities and awaken your soul to the beauty of the present moment. We will dive deep into the illusions of time, the weight of the ego, the debt of physical health, and the true definition of a legacy. This isn't just a collection of stories. It is a roadmap for anyone standing at the crossroads of their middle years, searching for a life lived without the heavy burden of too late. Let us begin this exploration of the heart and mind, starting with the first crucial lesson on the fleeting nature of time and the urgency of truly living. The concept of time at 30 is often a paradoxical blend of feeling like an absolute beginner while simultaneously acting as if one has an infinite reservoir of days to squander on trivialities. When looking back from the vantage point of nearly a century, the most striking realization is how quickly the decade of the 30s vanishes into the rearview mirror, often consumed by the frantic pursuit of milestones that seem monumental in the moment but fade into insignificance with age. At 30, most people are caught in the thick of it, balancing the burgeoning demands of career advancement, the complexities of long-term relationships, and the physical vitality that they wrongly assume will last forever. There is a persistent myth that there is always more time to reconcile with family, to travel, or to finally prioritize health. Yet the reality is that the foundation for one's elder years is laid precisely during these middle decades. Evelyn's perspective suggests that the greatest mistake is treating life as a rehearsal rather than the main event. People often spend their 30s waiting for their real life to begin, once they get the promotion, once the mortgage is paid, or once the children are grown, only to realize later that those very moments of struggle and anticipation were the essence of life itself. The wisdom of 98 years teaches that time is not a commodity to be managed, but a gift to be inhabited. The frantic pace of a 30-year-old often masks a deep-seated ego that believes it can control the flow of events through sheer willpower. However, the true lesson learned too late is often that the more we try to squeeze out of time for the sake of future security, the less we actually experience the richness of the present. This part of the journey is about recognizing that the someday we are all waiting for is a phantom. True living requires an immediate surrender to the present, acknowledging that while the body is strong and the mind is sharp, one must choose experiences over accolades and presence over productivity. The tragedy of looking back isn't usually the mistakes made, but the moments missed because the mind was too busy living in a future that hadn't arrived yet or a past that couldn't be changed. In the heat of one's 30s, the ego often plays a primary role in how we navigate marriages, friendships, and professional rivalries, frequently leading to unnecessary friction and long-term regret. From the perspective of a 98-year-old, the battles fought over being right or maintaining a certain image appear remarkably hollow. At 30, we are often still trying to prove our worth to the world, and this insecurity manifests as a defensive ego that protects itself at the cost of intimacy and connection. Whether in a marriage or a close friendship, the desire to win an argument or to have the final word creates a wall that becomes harder to dismantle as the years pass. Evelyn's message highlights that the quality of our lives is ultimately determined by the quality of our relationships, yet we often treat those closest to us with the least amount of patience and the highest amount of expectation. The realization that comes too late for many is that most of the things we argued about, money, household chores, or social status, did not actually matter in the grand scheme of a shared life. What remains at 98 are the memories of kindness, the warmth of shared laughter, and the regret of words spoken in anger that can never be retracted. If a 30-year-old could truly grasp the weight of their ego, they would see that it is a heavy burden to carry and a barrier to genuine love. Forgiveness is not just a moral virtue, but a practical necessity for a peaceful life. Holding on to grudges or nursing old wounds only robs the individual of joy in their later years. The ego convinces us that our pride is our protection, but wisdom reveals that our vulnerability is our greatest strength. To live without the need to dominate or impress is to find a level of freedom that most people only discover when they no longer have the energy to maintain a facade. There is a specific kind of arrogance that comes with the physical resilience of a 30-year-old body, a belief that it can endure endless stress, poor nutrition, and lack of sleep without eventually demanding payment. When you are nearly a century old, the physical vessel is the most direct link to your quality of life, and many look back at their 30s wishing they had treated their bodies with more reverence. At 30, health is often taken for granted or treated as a secondary concern behind career and social obligations. People push themselves to the brink, fueled by caffeine and ambition, ignoring the subtle signals of burnout and wear. However, the habits formed in these years, or the neglect practiced, become the foundation for the decades that follow. The lesson learned too late is that health is not merely the absence of disease, but the presence of vitality, and it is much easier to maintain than it is to reclaim once it has slipped away. Looking back, the hours spent in sedentary positions or the years spent ignoring mental well-being seem like a poor trade for the temporary gains achieved. True wealth at 98 is the ability to walk unaided, to see the world clearly, and to live without chronic pain. Yet these are the very things we often sacrifice in our youth for the sake of monetary wealth. The message to the younger self is one of balance, to work hard but also to rest deeply, to nourish the body with the same care one would give a prized possession, and to understand that mental health is inextricably linked to physical health. The stress that feels manageable at 30 becomes a heavy anchor in later life. Wisdom dictates that we should treat our bodies not as tools to be used until they break, but as the only home we will ever truly own. The physical decline that comes with age is inevitable, but the speed and severity of that decline are often dictated by the choices made when the blood was still warm and the muscles were still strong. At 30, the pursuit of financial security and social status often feels like the most important mission in life, driven by a fear of scarcity and a desire to keep up with peers. However, from the vantage point of a 98-year-old, the relationship with money takes on a completely different character. The hours spent working late, the stress of climbing the corporate ladder, and the obsession with accumulating material possessions often seem like a wasted effort when viewed through the lens of a lifetime. While financial stability is undeniably important, the mistake many make in their 30s is sacrificing their most valuable years for the sake of a bank balance they may never fully enjoy. Money, in the end, is only a tool for freedom and security. It is not a substitute for experiences, relationships, or peace of mind. Evelyn's reflections often touch on the fact that no one on their deathbed ever wishes they had spent more time at the office or bought a more expensive car. Instead, the regrets are centered on the trips not taken, the hobbies not pursued, and the moments of generosity that were withheld out of a sense of financial fear. The wisdom learned too late is that enough is a state of mind rather than a specific number. When the ego is tied to net worth, the hunger for more is never satisfied, leading to a life of perpetual striving and zero contentment. If a 30-year-old could understand that time is the only currency that truly matters, they would spend it much more carefully. Investing in memories and the well-being of others yields a much higher return in the long run than any traditional investment. True success is not measured by what you have gathered, but by the life you have lived and the impact you have had on the people around you. The pursuit of wealth should be a means to an end, never the end itself. As one nears the end of a long life, the perspective shifts from the what of living to the why, and the concept of legacy becomes a central theme of reflection. For a 98-year-old, the legacy is not found in monuments or titles, but in the quiet influence they had on their family, friends, and community. At 30, we often think of legacy as something grand that will happen in the distant future, but the truth is that it is being built every single day through our smallest actions. The lesson learned too late is that the way we treat people and the integrity with which we live our lives are the only things that truly endure. Regret is a heavy companion in old age, but it usually stems from the things we didn't do rather than the things we did. We regret the risks we were too afraid to take, the love we didn't express, and the authenticity we suppressed to fit in. To a 30-year-old, the world seems full of judgment and expectations, but to a 98-year-old, it becomes clear that most people were too worried about themselves to even notice our perceived failures. The freedom to be oneself, to live according to one's own values rather than societal pressures, is the ultimate goal. Looking back, the message is clear. Live boldly, love deeply, and don't take life too seriously. The mistakes that feel like the end of the world at 30 are merely footnotes by the time you reach 90. Life is a fleeting, beautiful, and often messy experience that deserves to be embraced with open arms. The final wisdom is that the secret to a good life is not avoiding pain or struggle, but finding meaning within it and remaining grateful for the opportunity to have existed at all. By sharing these lessons, the elderly offer a map to the young, hoping they will navigate their own journeys with a bit more grace, a lot more love, and the realization that it is never too early to start living the life you will one day look back on with a smile. As we close this chapter of profound life lessons, it is my hope that these insights serve as a gentle reminder to pause, breathe, and reevaluate the path you are currently walking. Life at 98 isn't defined by the wealth you accumulated, but by the love you shared and the moments you were truly present for. To ensure you don't miss a single step of this transformative journey, I invite you to join our community here every single day. We are committed to bringing you these high-value reflections consistently, with a new video uploading every night at 8 p.m. sharp. Make it a part of your nightly routine to reflect and grow with us, ensuring that when you eventually look back on your own life, it is with a smile of fulfillment rather than the sigh of regret. Thank you for your time and your heart. I look forward to seeing you here tomorrow at 8 p.m. for our next deep dive into the wisdom of living well.